what I've been able to deduce is you have the 2018 numbers in June, you have the 2017 numbers in June. These numbers are 10% down. What's the story?
Yeah, and so it's a weird number because the number of sales is down. Like it's down about 100 ends, we call them. So when you're buying and selling a house, there's two ends. There's the buying side and the selling side. So it's down 100 ends overall. It is down 100 deals. That's right. It's down 100 deals. So it went from 1,635 to 1,535. So it's only about 8 deals a month when you actually think about it. But the actual average sales price is up about a couple $100. So the market itself is getting a few less buyers, but the prices are being sustained and even going up. And there's been an upward trend for the last 3-4 years. So it's tough to say like, oh, the market's way down, because I don't feel that's what it actually is. But it has been affected by the stress test for sure, where certain buyers that could just qualify are just now out. And that would explain the 8 a month, right? There's just about 8 or 10 families a month that just can't do the move right now. Yeah.
So another thing that I had seen was just that the average price for a house was $281,000. So
Yeah, I've got it at $286,155 for June to June.
So is that the type of average that you would expect to see normally?
Yeah, typically. So what ended up happening with the stress test is it feels like the income levels in Lethbridge were they're qualifying right in that 280 range. So a lot of the houses are selling for 250s and less. The 350 to 450,000 market has been beaten up pretty bad, because if you could afford kind of 330, 350 before, now it's maybe 300, 310. So now you're looking for deals in the 270 to 300 range. So the most affected range is that 350 to 450, and that's moving people down. We have noticed, our team has noticed a lot of people actually buying above that though, like a lot of the $500,000, $600,000, $1 million, those ones seem to be selling faster than they used to as well, because people are freed up with more funds. But it is just affecting, it seems to be a small chunk in Lethbridge.
Now, have you yourself had any conversations with clients or potential clients where they're like, well, we want to go here, we just can't afford it?
Yeah, that's typical. We've noticed like the hardest hit areas right now are kind of where a bunch of the builders are still building in. So Copperwood, for example, is really saturated. If you have a house that you want to sell that you bought a couple years ago, $350,000, it's tough to sell. And if you can sell it, you can go buy something really good. So it's a conversation you have to have on both sides. Like, what are their goals? If they're leaving town right away, it's going to be a tough sell. If you're staying in town and you're just kind of upgrading, you might get beat up a little bit on your sales price, but then you'll also be able to buy a little bit better too. So, but we haven't had too many people where they're shocked by it. I think it's the stress test has had enough time to allow people to talk to their mortgage brokers and figure out what their numbers are actually going to be.
So I mean, we talked about obviously the stress test, back in January. I was actually able to talk to Carrie about that, and that was good.
Okay.
So we know the ins and the outs there. Is this, like, I know that you kind of alluded that it was kind of inconsequential, sort of the 10% decrease. But if we are looking at the fact that, eight deals a month aren't going down necessarily, is the stress test the main reason for that?
Oh yeah, it's 100% the reason for the drop. If you look for 10 years past, you just see a line up. We were above boom numbers, like from 2007, which was one of the biggest booms in the history of the world. And we were above those numbers. So we had climbed out of that kind of depression. We were way above it. And now this stress test is putting a lot of people right out of the market. So it has hurt. And you can walk down the street, go buy a car, get a $1,000 payment. No one is stopping that. Like, you can go get big credit cards, whatever. No one stops that kind of stress test. But they are affecting the housing, which is kind of annoying, right? You can go out and buy a car today, no big deal. But yeah, I would say if you said 8 to 10 deals are crashing or just not coming together, I think it's a direct correlation.
Did you get that?
No.
So I guess let's look at the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Now that we've actually seen, what this new stress test has done.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
You've kind of noticed, well, because it's been implemented for so much longer, we haven't really noticed anyone where they're not aware of it. So I think the story is some people have been maybe head in the sand, and they've been not watching what can they afford. So we've seen a few deals crash where they'll write an offer subject to financing, it gets to the bank level and it gets rejected. So we've noticed that that's been one of the biggest problems with it. But the one we've noticed the most in the last 6 months is one that maybe it's an unintended consequence, but mortgage renewals. So we'll get a letter. So we own rental properties, so we'll get sent a mortgage renewal, and it says right at the top, hey, just sign here, and the posted rates they want you to do are way worse than what you would have gotten a few years ago. And it seems like the banks are aware that maybe you can't re-qualify with this new stress test. So you better take the deal we're giving you, even if it's 4.5% or 5% compared to a 3.3% rate. So that's been the most eye-opening one, is watching what the banks are doing with it. And I guess if you worked at a bank and you were the owner, yeah, it makes sense to just send these letters out and hope people sign at 4.5%, and they don't want to worry about re-qualifying. So that's what we've really noticed is they get people who already currently own homes.
Now, just a couple more questions, and I'm going to get you to repeat yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
When I had spoken, because I'd spoken with Carrie, I'd spoken with somebody else back in January as well, and what she had said was she was seeing people who initially were going to be able to go for the threes, and then they had to drop down to 250.
Yeah.
Have you had a lot of those interactions as well?
Yes, and that's, you got to start early with the buyers. So if they say to you, we're qualified for 3, you need to figure out who they've been talking to, where are they with a lender, and everything like that. But yeah, we have seen that there's just the math on it. So whatever the math is, you can do it, reverse engineer it. But if they could qualify for 300, maybe it's 280 now, maybe it's 270. And in Lethbridge, that gap is a huge difference in a house. Like a $350,000 house and a $250,000 house, there's a big difference. And even between 300 and 260, 270, there's a big gap on what kind of house you get and what quality you do get. So it has hurt a lot of people that way, where they've just stopped shopping. They're looking at 300s and they're like, I don't want anything for 270, so we'll just keep renting until we save up more money.
That leads in nicely to what I think is my last question.
Yeah.
As we see, again, just those 8 to 10 deals a month that don't go through, is that because of the stress test and because people just can't meet, the high to go for the lower? Is it really that there's nothing they can do about it, or is it a misconception that they can do something about it?
I think it's a little bit of both, and maybe a little bit of hubris, saying, especially if you got caught looking at 300,000s, let's say, and you were looking at them, and they're shiny and they're new and they're pretty, and then you get this reality check, you can only afford 270, and then you go look at 10 of those and you go, oh, not what I want. So you may have got kind of stuck in that where you're looking at nice stuff. And so I think it's a little bit of both. I think some people just straight up can't qualify. They've looked at the numbers and they were tight as it was, and they need a few months now to go pay off credit cards, pay off car loans, whatever it is, to get their ratios down. And then I think there's also a little bit of people who are just like, well, I'll just wait. I'm just gonna save 10, 15 grand more and get the place I want. So I think it's a mixed bag right now.
Have I missed anything?
No, I think not. You can blame the government all you want on this one. Like seriously, that's the one that drives us crazy, is if you and I walk to Dodge right now, we could probably get a $1,000 car loan without much, honestly, right? You just drive in, show them your credit card, your driver's license, and 2 days later you have a $1,000 car payment. So that's the one that's driving most of us crazy, because no one's regulating that. They're regulating things that has been proven to build wealth, proven to give people equity in homes. If you're paying $1,600 a month in rent, but I can buy a house and pay $1,200 in mortgage, and half of that kind of goes to my principal, how are you helping me when I can't do that now? And now I'm just stuck paying the landlord's money forever, right? So yeah, I think that's the one we want to hammer home the hardest. But as the market goes, I'm not a doom and gloom guy. It's actually pretty good. The prices are up, so that's got to mean something. But the amount of sales being down just means that, yeah, just a few families every month, which sucks. Like 8 to 10 families a month can't afford to buy or move, right? So it does hurt the whole economy, I'd say. Yeah.
And of course, this stress test was put in place to sort of try to regulate Toronto and Vancouver to make the markets there better. So
Yeah.
Is it kind of an attitude of like, government's looking here, government's looking there, and we're just kind of collateral?
We get the fallout, yeah. And if you look at Lethbridge, we've been steady Eddie forever, right? Even when it boomed, it went up like this much. And when it bust, it went down this much. And then we just steady climb. And And yeah, you look at Toronto and stuff, and they've had to implement so many rules, like Dower Act rules and things like that, where people were accepting offers and crashing the deals later so they could accept bigger offers. And that just doesn't happen. If you get multiple offers in Lethbridge, it's like $2,000 over asking price. Like it's not 50,000 or 80,000. So yeah, I think we're getting hammered on these weird rules where it's affecting us slightly, but again, only having 100,000 people in the area, we're only noticing, like I said, 8 to 10 deals a month. So, but I know realtors in Calgary and Edmonton and Toronto who, yeah, they're suffering a lot more where the inventory is not as good, you know. So, and if you look at our inventory now, there's something like 900 plus listings on our MLS where it's typically around 500 to 700, right in that range. So we are high on our inventory right now too. So yeah, I think we're getting hammered with these weird regulations that should have hit, you know, you didn't have to broad stroke it. I think that was the problem. So.
Well, and a quick clarification, just to put it in perspective, you're saying 8 to 10 deals a month are not going through, and then what's the big picture there? Like, how many deals would you normally put through in a month?
Well, like I said, last year was 1,635, and this year, and I'm talking about last year, I go 2016 to 17 June was 1,630, and 2018 today minus 365 days was 1,536. So it's only 100 deals different total for Lethbridge and area, not including like Picture Butte and all that stuff, right? So just for us, it's about 100 deals for the whole year. So that's why we say about 8 to 10 that are hurting us a month.